Signal. Repeat.
Nothing seems to confuse a reasonable and otherwise morally centered mind like the Israel-Palestine conflict. At the heart of the most bloodthirsty and backward bastion of hatred on the face of the earth sits a tiny country the size of Belize. It's a healthy and beating heart of freedom within the cancerous body of unthinkable brutality known as the Middle East. Israel's a free and humane civilization with all the trappings of Western democracy. Women's rights, property rights, open, free, and transparent elections, world-class education for all, and a laundry list of sexually progressive flauntings. Israel is quite literally America-lite, amidst a patchquilt of horrific Islamic theocracies. Furthermore, the freest Arabs in the Middle East live in Israel. More than 1 million Arab Palestinians chose to live in Israel rather than return to living under oppression by their own Arab brethren in the Middle East. And the reason isn't some big mystery. Israeli society gives more freedom to Arabs than do Arab countries. Arabs in Israel have equal rights under the law. Arabs in Israel can vote for whomever they want, can worship freely whomever they want. Arabs in Israel have the exact same educational opportunities as do every other Israeli. Arabs are members of the Israeli parliament and ministers in government. Arabs are active in Israeli commerce, media, education, law. Over 100,000 Arab illegal aliens have left their Arab nation to live in Israel. With all that being said, you'd think that our fine fellow Americans on the progressive left, if asked to pick sides, would rally around, wait for it, the progressive nation of Israel. After all, we all know what happens to the queer eye for the Al-Qaeda outside the Israeli border, don't we? We all know what happens to teenage girls who want to read a book burqa-free outside the Israeli border. But here's where the line of leftist logic pretzels into acrobatic-like contorted shapes of silliness. Not only do leftists across the globe not support the only state in the Middle East mirroring their stated values, but they continuously seek to undermine Israel's statehood and coddle its Islamist fundamentalist enemy. Leftists, such as the new Old York Times, the Grey Lady herself, love to throw their lot in with Islamic headloppers. It seems they're the only fundamentalists on the face of the earth that the left wants to crawl in political bed with. Bizarre, right? Well, it should be bizarre if you're not drowning in a pool of secular extremist moral confusion and hypocrisy. I mean, it's pretty odd to every rational person that today's secular, progressive, social engineers want to throw their lot in with Hamas and Palestine. What it should do is expose the leftist ideology as something without true values, because terms like women's rights and gay rights, they all get untethered and chucked overboard when it's not politically expedient. Loose-lipped leftists all over the place, even the ones sitting presently at the seat of power in the United States, have begun to throw around irresponsible terms like apartheid when talking about Israel, the Dutch African term for separation, once the discriminating, horrible social order of South Africa. But if truth and facts enter the conversation at all, there's no comparison whatsoever between South Africa and Israel. Plain, flat-out, intellectually dishonest, it's a lie. To the contrary, actually, not a single apartheid law can be found anywhere in Israeli society. By far the most racially mixed and tolerant society anywhere in the Middle East, that's not even disputable. Total Israeli equality is guaranteed in Israel's founding document. Arabs are deputy speakers in Israel. Arabs actually represent Israel's diplomatic service throughout the world. The truth is, all other Arab countries surrounding Israel are open expressions of ignorance, intolerance, hatred, bigotry, division by way of gender and race and religion. Other left-wing zealots and anti-Semites will point your attention to the apartheid wall. This is actually the fence that separates Israel proper from the territories. A fence constructed at great expense to Israelis after Arab suicide bombers killed thousands and injured terribly thousands more. And by the way, the fence worked. They stopped those suicide bombs. I guess Israel didn't have the right to do that. By the way, fences aren't unique to Israel. The truth when you're talking about the Israeli-Arab conflict is as clear as daily Iranian calls to wipe Israel off the map. Israel not only isn't an impediment to peace in the region, but in the past they foolishly decided to give away Jewish lives, pride, prosperity, land, political capital in some futile, foolish, desperate pursuit of this Arab carrot on the stick the West likes to call peace. Israel has every right to use whatever means necessary to protect their country and the citizens within it. The truth is, we shouldn't even really need to debate this. If Hamas was raining down rockets on the Upper East Side of New York day after day after day, the United States would have long turned them into a pile of shiny plastic beads. At the end of the day, the Israeli-Arab conflict is hard to resolve, but it's really easy to explain. Israel wants to continue to exist, and Arabs in the surrounding area have decided that they will exist to kill Jews. The motto of Hamas is, "We love death as much as the Jews love life." Here's a quote by Yasser Arafat. "Peace for us means destruction of Israel." Day after day, Palestinian TV broadcasts kill the Jews to its citizens, even its children. Some on the progressive, enlightened left have suggested that Israel give up land for peace. So Israel gave up land for peace. They gave up the entire Sinai Peninsula, an oil-rich landmass bigger than the state of Israel. How did the Arabs respond to this olive branch of peace? More rockets on the head of Israeli children. And why weren't these same enlightened, nuanced thinkers on the left talking about Palestinian statehood when they were under Jordanian rule? The reason should be crystal clear to you. These anti-Semites, they don't care about this pablum they're speaking. They just hate Jews. It's transparent thin. It's not complicated at all. And if I haven't convinced you yet, here's how you can convince your own mind that the responsibility falls right in the lap of the Arabs. If tomorrow Palestine decided that we're going to stop raising our children to hate Jews and instead raise them to love life, I don't know, maybe they're going to build a hospital, a library, instead of building suicide bombs to strap to their children. There would instantly be lasting and secure peace in the region. Instantly. However, if Israel did the same, dropped all their arms, waved the white flags, they would be wiped off the face of the earth that same day in a jolt of genocide not seen in the world since Hitler. Nobody can logically dispute that. Nobody. There has never been throughout the history of mankind a state in that geographic area that was not Jewish. Present-day Israel is the third autonomous Jewish state to exist in that area. And the profoundly sad irony of this conflict is that the Jews and the Arabs have a tremendous amount in common, both culturally and historically. The dispute traces back to biblical roots when Sarah refused to wait on the timing of God. And thus an Egyptian handmaiden Hagar would splinter a branch in the Abrahamic faith that looks like it will never heal. Some things in life are simple, but not simplistic. For anybody willing to look at this situation with morally clear eyes, there's only one thing to see. Israel has literally moved heaven and earth to acquire peace. And Arabic culture at large has watched their once great civilizations crumble under the corrosive, acid-like, unadulterated hatred and bloodlust towards Israel. Golda Meir said something once I think completely encapsulates this in one sentence. Peace will come when the Arabs love their children as much as they hate us.
This is a pirate transmission.